Welcome to the Moon Baby Magic podcast, a space to honor women's rites of passage stories. From menarche to menopause, the initiations of womanhood all live within our wombs. Through our first bleed to our last, we come to know ourselves more deeply. This is a platform to reclaim the sacredness of all of it. I'm your host, Natalie Elliott, birth keeper and women's coach, specializing in womb wellness and hormonal healing. Ready for slow and sacred storytelling? Let's dive in. What's up, women? Welcome back to the show. I'm so happy to be here with you all today, recording in the evening by candlelight. Today is November 25th. I am on cycle day 16, just preparing for ovulation. It's totally possible today was my ovulation day because I feel magnetic, super playful, and just like a lot of outward energy. Almost to the point where I feel like, should I reel this in? But I also think it's really important for us to honor this. And in this conversation, Brittany was also about to ovulate. And so you'll get some of that energy in there as well. I'll see. We'll see if my temperature spikes tomorrow and if I did ovulate. If you don't know, your fertility awareness method chart can tell you a lot more than that. It can tell you after you ovulated. It can tell you when you're about to ovulate. It can tell you how your progesterone levels are doing, how your thyroid levels are doing. I looked at a client's chart today and she had these up and down temperatures, which sometimes can indicate some stress or even liver qi stagnation. There's really a lot there, and I have gotten questions all the time around if I can just look at this or if I can just look at that. And the reality is a session with me is initially 90 minutes and then 1 hour. They run about $150 to $200. And that's how I review women's charts. But when I was thinking into what do I want to offer for this, what I've been calling the Black Friday portal, makes it a little more sacred, doesn't it? I felt like, yeah, let me give women a way to get some direct feedback from me without perhaps a big commitment, just to see how it feels. So what I am offering to you, and you can find this in the show notes, is a $35 chart interpretation of your fertility awareness method chart. This will be followed by me sending you a voice note, 15 to 20 minutes. I'll send it via WhatsApp with what I see in your chart, all of my detailed observations, as well as 2 to 4 recommendations, anything from diet, lifestyle, supplements, herbs, nervous system practices, whatever I see is most important there. If you are not already in a charting practice, I got this question on Instagram, you can go ahead and purchase the chart reading interpretation. And as long as you can get me a chart within the next 2 months or month by the end of the year, I am happy to honor that for you. So again, you can find all of those details there. You'll also find the Nourished and Thriving Retreat application link. Our retreat is filling up with such amazing women, and we also have a Black Friday special for the retreat, which is that when you purchase during our Black Friday event, which is today through Saturday, you will get a bonus bundle of luxury goods. One will be the period undies that I love best from Sinu Moon. They're luxurious hemp bamboo cotton blend, and you're going to get them as a bonus bundle when you sign up. You're also going to get a yoni steaming blanket from Kitara, which all of Kitara's stuff is actually on sale right now too, and you can find their link in the show notes as well. But this is an organic cotton and linen blend blanket that you can wrap around yourself to steam with. I've been using mine for a week now, and it is total luxury. So if you've been thinking about the retreat, we are still in pre-sale, so the price will go up in January. And now we're in this Black Friday sale event. This is the perfect time to get your application in and join us. All right, I think those are all of my updates for you today. I'm just inviting you to check in with where you are at in time and in space. And can we talk about Freebirth for a minute? Can we talk about Freebirth rigidity? Okay, great. So in this heart-centered episode, we welcome Brittany. Brittany is a Freebirth podcast host of Hear Me Roar, who has actually chosen that for her next baby, who she's currently trying to consciously conceive, she will not free birth. In this episode, we get into Brittany's evolution from OBGYN care to midwifery to denouncing it all, and now to finally finding a middle ground of nuance, softness, and her own personal truth. Brittany shares her birth story with her son and breaks down which interventions she felt were not called for, but also which ones she now sees as probably a good idea. As you listen, I invite you to do so with an open mind and an open heart, because this is a conversation full of moments of humility and definitely left both Brittany and I in tears multiple times. I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to hearing any feedback you have to share. Let's get right in. All right, amazing. Hey, Brittany, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. I feel like we are already having such a rich conversation about like nourishment and honoring women before we hit record, which I don't know, you're a podcast host too, so I'm sure you get it. Sometimes you have these really juicy tidbits that come in before recording and you're like, wait.
Wait, can I just go back and re-record that? Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Oh
Oh,
gosh.
I
So
love
yeah,
it.
I know we're gonna get into some good stuff. But yeah, the way that I really love to orient my listeners to you is if you would share what phase of life you're in and where you are in your cycle. And so phase of life, I usually orient to like maiden, mother, sorceress, crone. You can kind of orient however you would like to that. And you already told me what phase of your cycle you're in, so I know that, but you can tell everyone else too.
Yeah. So I'm deep in motherhood right now. I have a 3-year-old, wild, wonderful little boy. And he is my whole entire world. And then
Mm,
right now I am trying to conceive
mm,
um, our next baby, which I'm really, really excited for.
mm.
I feel like this baby has been like calling to me for probably a year now.
Wow.
Um, and I was totally ready in ways, but I think I still had some softening and some maturing to do as well um, before the baby was actually ready and I'm
Mm.
actually ready. So now I definitely think it's going to happen very soon, or at least I
Mm.
hope. Um, and then I am literally about to ovulate probably today or tomorrow. So that is the phase of my cycle that I'm in currently. Um,
Mm.
and it's really crazy actually, because before I had my son, I had these perfect 28-day cycles, like right on the money, and I'm still breastfeeding. And so it's really all over the place. And last month was the very first month that I had a 28-day cycle since before I conceived him in
Whoa.
2021. Yeah,
Whoa.
which was wild. I was like, wait, I am not due for my period for like 3 days. What's going on? This is weird. Um, and then this month, it's really odd because I'm on day 19 of my
Mm.
cycle. And
Mm.
for the previous months before that, I wasn't ovulating until day 20 or so.
Mm.
And I totally relate that to the fact that I'm breastfeeding because even though he's
Yeah.
3, if I would let him do it all day and all night, he totally would. But I recently like night weaned him because for one, I'm ready for sleep.
Yeah.
And I feel like it will help me with my conception journey as well. So
Mm.
that is where I'm at currently with my cycle.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like these questions, like when I ask women these questions, it's so normal for me because I ask women these questions all the time, like what phase of life you're in and talking about motherhood and where you're at in your cycle and how are you feeling. And then I realize sometimes that this is kind of revolutionary to be checking in with the women in our lives and like knowing where they are in their cycles, but how much of a grounded presence that brings to a conversation to have the orientation to like, okay, Brittany's about to ovulate and she's in this conception time and like this is what's going on in her life and we can kind of understand where you are and the context of who you are in this season of your life in a different way because of that. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing. I'm also close to ovulation. I'm on day 12. And so I'm getting there too. So we're both in this like fun, like excited, creative energy, which is the
Yeah,
perfect energy to record a podcast episode in.
it is. And also, like, in birth work, it's really fun because I mean, I think about birth and like my business and stuff all the time.
Hmm.
But especially when I'm about to ovulate, I'm like, okay, today, like, let me go sign up for this school or this course. Or it's like, hold on, can I just like brainstorm this for a little bit before I commit to something?
Oh,
It's
that's so true.
fun.
Yeah, I feel like the follicular energy that time before ovulation, I always say like that's the maiden of your cycle, right? Like in your smaller cycle of menstruating, the maiden is kind of in that follicular energy before you ovulate, and the maiden can be really distracted. She can be like this and then that and then
Yeah,
that, and it's hard to just like stay the course on something.
for sure.
So I
Yeah.
totally feel that. I'll get in these like holes, and I'm like, how did I even get here? Like, what am I? Oh, yeah, but
Oh,
it's so great. Yeah, thank you for that, and really love hearing about yeah, just how you're feeling with. I guess what really stood out to me and what you said is that you felt like you had some softening and maturing to do.
mhm.
I love that for a couple of reasons. On a personal note, I love that because I pick a year or a word every year from when I turn a new age on my birthday that's like going to represent that year of my life. And so I just had my birthday about a month ago in October, and the previous year of my life, my word was maturity. And then this year, my word is softness. And
Aw.
so it's really sweet to hear those words together from you. And I think that some people might hear those words and, not necessarily think of those as like going together, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that this path of motherhood, and I'm so excited to hear more about this path and how it's been for you. I think this path to moving from maiden to mother and even from moving to like calling in your next baby, it does require like I feel like it is the maturity is what leads to the softness, knowing
Yeah.
that like there's so much that you can't control, and softening into that trust of the co-creation that is you and this baby and God. And that's like to me the ultimate like feminine maturity. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, for me, a lot of it too was like decisions with how I'll move forward. Will I free birth? Will
Mm,
I hire a wise woman to walk with me? If
mm,
so, who will I hire? How will
mm,
all of this play out? Can I let some of my ego go in order to sort of meet in the middle with what I feel like I'm being asked from my baby, from
yeah.
God for this next experience? And I think that that is really hard, at least for me, to
Mm,
do, to let go of ego. You know, I host
so
a
big.
free birth podcast. And
Yeah.
so, of course, everybody's probably like, of course you're going to free birth. But really, it's been so fun because it's given me this open door of opportunity to explore all of the possibilities. And
Mm,
when I originally stepped into this, it was out of this idea that like free birth is the only option. It is the best option. And it is an option and it
yeah.
is a beautiful
Yeah.
option. However, I personally do not believe that it's what I'm called to do, at least not in this
Um,
season of life. And it's really hard to like admit that and let the ego
mm,
go, like let that chip away. And I also really respect my husband and I respect his thoughts and opinions. And this was kind of the Brittany show for a while where I was like, well, it's what I want. And really, it's like, but I'm his wife and this is his child as well. And I just really respect his thoughts and opinions. And whenever I opened the door to those, is when I realized he was like, man, I don't want to be your midwife. And I was
mm.
kind of asking him to be my midwife. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that.
Wow.
I don't feel qualified to do that. Um, and I'm like, well, I can just be my own midwife. And he's like, but can you, like in every circumstance? And he's very much a prepper, survivalist.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like free birth and do all of these things with somebody who he's prepped in every other aspect, but he has no idea about birth. I
Mm,
rattle along about it all day long, but I mean, if you're not passionate about something, you're probably not retaining most
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of softening, letting the ego chip away, realizing that everything that I thought I knew and that I had been led to believe isn't isn't as accurate as I thought. And I actually have met now a good handful of women who have free birthed and then went on to hire a wise woman to walk with them later
Mm,
because they actually didn't like enjoy being alone. I think that as women, I think that it's really natural to want that feminine energy in your space. Maybe not necessarily staring at you while you're pushing the baby out, but like in the other room, maybe like wiping the sweat off of you, like
yeah.
rubbing your back, squeezing your hips, refilling your water for you, just the simple stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's so natural to want that. And I actually believe that in history, I think, or historically, I think that it's been common to have a wise woman at your side versus just being completely alone. And a
Mm,
lot of the women I know who have free births and then regretted it, that was their thing, is they're like, I just feel like I deserved somebody. Like I
mm,
deserved to have somebody. I didn't need to do that alone. I didn't have to.
yeah.
And it's a lot to take in that reality and also hold at the same time that, like, you know, you have to be very selective with who you invite in. You
Mhm.
have to be very careful and, you don't want to be disturbed because inviting anybody in at all is low key like an intervention in and of itself. So they probably should also have some wisdom. It probably just shouldn't be Susie Sue down the road that doesn't know anything about nothing. But yeah, all of that to say,
Wow.
I have just really, really changed so much in
Mm.
the last year, in the last 6 months. And it's like every day I learn something new and I'm always open to change. I think it's part of the journey.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Brittany. I think you and I touched on this a little bit on Instagram, this topic about kind of moving away from the extremes of free birth or bust, basically.
Hmm.
And I mean, I have been in the free birth world in the way that I've thought, I want to support mothers. And I have come to such similar conclusions as you, and have heard so many women in my life do the same in the last year as well. And it is
Yeah.
exactly that. It's that, like, don't I deserve support? Like, what if I want that though? Is it okay to want that? And that's a really tender reflection for a lot of us, when especially when we're women who really believe in, this is such a buzzword, but sovereignty.
Hmm.
Like when we're women who really value that. And I think most of the women who listen to both of our podcasts are. And so it's a really tender reflection to be like, well, is it okay that I want support? And I think this goes really deep. I think it goes to sort of the culture that many of us have created, especially in a like self-development focused culture where we just feel like we have to do it all on ourselves or do it all by ourselves. And we feel like there's a hesitation to ask for the help that some of us actually really want because we think it makes us not radical enough or not in alignment with natural birth enough or whatever the variation of that might be. And so I just really honor you for the courage that it takes to like change your mind because that is immense. And it does take a lot of maturity. It takes a lot of willingness to like look and actually dive into what is true for you. It takes a lot of courage to like open your heart back up to like, wow, maybe my husband's opinion does matter, like all of these things that we've kind of been told like aren't part of the radical birth paradigm. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I just really appreciate that dialogue and that reflection. And I can so relate. I think the word softness for me is partly about like softening the edges around rigid belief structures to actually make space for what's true and what's true in this season of life. Because what was true for you in a past season of life may not hold up now, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think that it's important to have an open mind, especially as a birth worker or a woman who
Hmm.
works in, the women's health and wellness field at all. I think that it's so
Yeah.
important. And yeah, like it was an extra added layer that, I'm a free birth podcast host. And so here I am, like, and I mean, it's not just women who free birth, it's also women who have a sovereign birth.
Yeah.
But to me, like even the term sovereign birth, like a lot of us think of that and it's like, well, you're just having your sister come in then. Maybe you're not alone, but you're just having your sister. Like you're still not hiring a medical professional. But honestly, the deeper I dive, I realize that like women are so strong. We're
Mm.
so strong. And it doesn't really matter, even if you go to the hospital. And this is very extreme. Like this took me a long time to come to this conclusion. I still don't believe you can have a physiologic birth at the hospital because of
Hmm.
the lights and the random faces and the strangers. And,
Yeah, totally.
but I do believe you can be in your sovereignty. I do
Mm.
believe that you can say, absolutely not, and you can stand by that. And to me, that is a sovereign birth. It's not necessarily
Mm.
about the credentials of the person that you hire or
Right.
even necessarily the place in which you give birth. It's
Mm.
the ability to self reflect and realize, what do I want? Am I willing to advocate and stand up for myself and let go of this like good girl persona
Mm.
in order to get what I want? But also being open enough to realize that sometimes birth and the journey and God have a totally different plan for us than what we had envisioned for ourselves. And
Yeah.
so this is where kind of my birth story comes in, because as a first time mom, I thought I was going to have this beautiful, simple, fairy light, Instagram perfect
Mm.
birth. And when I came out of that with a handful of interventions that, when I look back on it now with an open mind, I actually can see those interventions were purposeful. I do not think that those interventions were done out of ill will.
Mm.
Absolutely not. I know all of the women that were in my space were definitely looking out for me.
Mm.
I think that as first time moms, or just as moms in general, when you go through a challenging birth that you didn't expect to have and you come out of the other side, it can be easy to forget about the fact that it was your responsibility. Whoever you hired, the decisions that you made, the things that you allowed, it was your responsibility. And I neglected that for a while. I
Yeah.
let that go and I played this like blame game on the women who were within my space, when in reality, I could have easily said no to anything that they had offered up to me.
Mm.
And no, you shouldn't necessarily have to. You shouldn't have to spend a lot of your energy advocating for yourself and all of this. But birth can be very challenging. It's not just this straightforward stuff. Like you're literally expanding and bringing a freaking human being into this realm from another realm into this realm. So, how can we expect that to be straightforward and simple? And it's
Yeah.
actually really nice to have people, women especially, around you who know their stuff.
Yeah.
Because like in my experience, my baby was very large. I mean, some people may not say this, but he felt very large. He was 8.5 pounds and his head was in like the 100 percentile, whatever
Oh
that is, whatever
gosh.
size. His head was so big that he looked, I don't know if you've seen the movie Coneheads, but he came
Yes.
out and it was literally a straight up cone. And like there was
That's
so much molding that had to be done.
yeah.
And but because I'm laughing now, but in the moment it was totally not funny because
Yeah.
I could not urinate. And I was in labor for 23, 24 hours. And at some point, he was so low. And I believe he also was asynclitic, which, for those of you who don't know, asynclitic means instead of aligning perfectly with like the tip back part of the head crowning, they're like diagonal. And so
Mm.
there's no way, like, they can't come out like that. They've got to be repositioned and realigned. And his head was pushing on my bladder. And that was actually one of the most,
Wow.
again, with the buzzwords, like traumatic, not traumatic, but like really challenging.
Yeah.
It was one of the most really challenging parts of my birth looking back
Yeah.
now was, man, I had to pee so bad. And it did not
Mm.
matter how much I relaxed, who left the room. I was literally going to piss on my bathroom floor because I just had to go so bad.
Mm.
And I would spend the whole break between contractions trying to relax enough. And then another contraction would come on just when I thought I was going to finally be able to do
Mm.
it. But the reality was, it wasn't going to happen. And so the pressure of needing to be bearing down while you have a full bladder was just ungodly. And so after multiple hours of that, my midwife offered a catheter.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I think it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Looking back now, I think it was a really good idea because the reality of that is that, like, if you don't drain some of the urine, you could have issues with your bladder later
Yeah.
on from having it
Yeah.
be so full and not being able to drain it. Or that could lead to a hospital transfer because you're in so much pain. So that's kind of where the nuance has come in for me, because there was a point in time where I was like, yeah, and she did a catheter on me. And now I'm like, actually, thank God that she did that catheter on
Wow.
me and was there and willing and had the knowledge to be and the tools to be able to do that. Um, but I had hired in my state, I live in Illinois. When I birthed
Mm.
in the end of 2022, licensure was not available. So
Mm.
I had hired I think it was to certified nurse midwives, which for those of you
Okay.
that don't know, that's usually someone that went to like nursing school and then went to midwifery school. So they have like
Right.
even more training.
Yeah.
The woman that I hired was a certified professional midwife. So she had a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, but it was solely apprenticeship based. Um, but at the time, I didn't understand, excuse me, I didn't understand the politics behind it all. So I was like, I'm just hiring this like badass, unlicensed midwife who's like some rebel of the system.
Yeah.
And she is, and she definitely is. But she was practicing similarly to what a licensed midwife would practice. Um,
Mm.
and just the licensure wasn't available. But
Yeah.
either way, I mean, it was honestly a really beautiful experience. And I'm grateful because I had originally signed up for OB care,
Oh, wow.
um, because prior to conceiving my son, I had had a miscarriage. It was very, very early. I do believe it was related to coming off of birth control. I'd been on and
Mm.
off birth control for, I don't even know. I started my cycle when I was about 12. And I think I got on birth control when I was 15 or 16,
Mm-hmm.
but it was on and off. So I'd be on it for a year and come off it for a couple of years and then be on it and then come off it. But by the time I was 24 and ready to conceive, that's almost 10 years
Yeah, it
on and
does. It
off.
happens to a lot of
Um,
women.
and I do relate that to, and who knows, like it could have been anything, but I do
Mm-hmm.
think I came off of the pill and immediately started trying. Like I didn't give it a couple of months for me to sort of, you know, nourish my body and just whatever, like give myself a shot to kind of get back in the swing of things. I
Yeah.
immediately conceived. And so I think that that was definitely part of it. But
Mm.
I
Yeah.
miscarried.
I
Oh,
will
go ahead.
just say, like, I long-term birth control use, which is really common for a lot of women, like especially in this generation of women. I think we're around the same age. It's like many of us were on birth control. I wasn't, but many people were on birth control for like 10 years before, and then they get off and they're like, oh, I'm ready to have a baby now. And like your intuition that you think that the birth control contributed to the miscarriage, that can track because what long-term pharmaceutical use in general, but birth control really specifically can do is over time it leads to what in traditional Chinese medicine you would call blood deficiency.
Mm,
Because over time these pharmaceuticals like and we think of blood in TCM as like it's a little bit more than just like you cut your finger and you bleed. It's like this sense of sort of like vitality within you. It's like the substance is really what it is. Blood is the substance in your body. And if you think about like fluid and substance, you need an abundance of that to like hold a pregnancy. And so over time, what these pharmaceuticals do, antidepressants, birth control, whatever, is they deplete the blood. And so it does take some time of like consciously building that blood back through your diet, through your lifestyle, through, feeling your feelings, all of these things. And so, yeah, I just wanted to bring some sort of background to that like conscious awareness
Yeah.
that you had. My intention with the Moon Baby Magic podcast has always been that it feels like a safe sanctuary for women's stories. The kind of stories that we used to sit around the fire and share with each other, the kind of stories that came from honoring rites of passage and having the circle of sisters feel strong. If you've ever craved that level of community but haven't quite found it in person, I want you to know that the next Nourished and Thriving retreat is coming up, and this is exactly the place for women like you. On the twin volcano island of Ometepe, rising from the sacred waters of Lake Coquibolca of Nicaragua, we gather for 8 days of women-centered activities, like adventuring to tropical waterfalls, self-love, powerful photo sessions, silent mornings with bone broth cacao, daily women's well-being, health, womb, and expansion workshops, and mouth-watering, deeply nourishing seed oil-free international dishes made with grass-fed local meat, fruits, vegetables, and raw dairy. 7 nights of singing, story sharing, and heart-to-heart conversations around a crackling fire on the beach, while connecting with like-hearted women as the stars twinkle above and we sip even more bone broth hot chocolate. Laura and I hosted the first Nourished and Thriving retreat this past spring in the Sacred Valley of Peru, and it was amazing. The women healed, they learned new things about themselves, they learned about their bodies, they came home to their cycles, they made friends with each other and have continued to connect and reap the benefits of giving this gift to themselves. The Nourished and Thriving retreat is happening next time, March 30th to April 6th, 2026, this time in beautiful Nicaragua, and we want you to join us. There are women already claiming their spots, and we hope that you're next. So you can find all the details in the show notes.
No, it makes sense. And if I had had the knowledge that I do now, for one, I would have never taken it. But
Well,
for
yeah.
two, I would have at least came off of it and given myself bare minimum 3 months, but
Mhm.
probably more like 6, 12. But we also live in this world where women aren't being taught about their cycles.
Yeah.
Where I had no idea what the fertility awareness method was. I had an idea of, yeah, I probably ovulate around this time and this is, the only days that I can conceive ish, but I didn't know how to track any of it. And I
Yeah.
wasn't really paying. I mean, I think I had like the Flow period app, but that was
Oh, yeah.
mostly just to track my period.
Yeah,
So,
that's what most people do. They just track their period.
yeah, which is like, that's only part of the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I conceive, I miscarry, which I didn't even realize that was what was going on.
Wow.
I thought I was just having a really light, weird period until I took some tests and was like, oh, I'm pregnant. So of course,
Wow.
I immediately make an OB appointment, and then the pain came and the cramping, and so I go in and I'm not even positive on a pregnancy test. Like a week later, by the time I go in, they're like, "You're not pregnant." I'm like, "I am," and they're like, "But you're not. Like it's not showing." So,
Mm,
moral of the story, I took a few blood tests to make sure everything had passed, and I
wow.
just passed everything on my own,
Yeah.
which I'm like, praise God that, which
Yeah.
of course our bodies are totally capable, right? But like, praise God that I wasn't like talked into or forced into any kind of like procedures for that.
Like a DNC or something. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Because there are a lot of risks and a lot of cons that come with that I feel like women aren't
Yeah.
told about as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And how
but
was that process for you? Like, were you in a grief portal for that, or did you just kind of move on? Like, how?
no, I deep, deep
Yeah.
grief
Yeah.
because I felt like, for one, am I like, is there something wrong with me? That was like my
Mm,
first thought. And women don't talk about it a lot. You actually don't realize that, like, how many women around you have experienced a loss, like a miscarriage, especially, until you go through one. And
yeah.
then your auntie, your mom, your cousin, they kind of start coming out of the
Yeah.
woodwork. They're like, yeah, I had one. but it's
Yeah.
one of those like pat you on the back, no big deal, you'll get pregnant again. And for me, it was like, this is a huge deal.
Yeah.
And so I spent a few weeks mostly just like laying around, reading my Bible, praying. And I felt like I had lost a baby girl because the sunsets were like super pink, super, super pink for a few weeks. And that was also heartbreaking. It would have been heartbreaking either way, but
Yeah.
it was very, yeah, a deep grief portal for a while. And
Yeah.
thankfully, I went on to conceive, I think 2 or 3 cycles later. It was pretty quick. And
Yeah.
I really honestly feel like it's not like I never think about that baby or like I
Mhm.
never think about that situation or I don't grieve anymore because I do.
Yeah.
But being able to get pregnant so quickly and still have a baby pretty close to what my other due date would have been definitely helped me move forward. I feel like
Yeah.
quicker than it would have if it would have taken me like a year, say, to get pregnant.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and of course, like my husband was so sad and also was just like he didn't understand it, like what it was kind of like what happened, like I don't know, like things just
Yeah.
happen sometimes. Now
Yeah.
I definitely, like you had said, I definitely relate it to the birth control, getting pregnant so quick. And also
Hmm.
I was living in a different, way different paradigm back then, hence the OB care.
Yeah,
But
I mean, tell me a little bit like what was your life like back then?
I was working like a not super standard job. I was working at a dispensary actually, which was really, really
Wow.
fun. And it wasn't like 5 days a week or anything. It was like 3 days a week,
Hmm.
8-hour shifts or whatever. It was super chill. But
Yeah.
um health wise, like I said, I was intermittent fasting a
Mm.
lot back then and really worried about the number on the scale and trying to
Mhm.
be just as slim as I possibly could, even if that meant like not eating but for a 6 hour window in the day. And then when I did eat, it was processed, or like, I think we used to have a grocery budget of like, if I saw the bill get too much over 200 for like the month, I was like sweating and freaking out.
For
And
the
now
month.
I'm, yeah. And it wasn't that we couldn't afford it because we made similar money to what we make now,
Yeah.
but it was just I was
Not a
just being a
priority.
tightwad. And yeah,
Yeah.
the food wasn't a priority because we were going out to eat and all kinds of stuff back then. But so I was buying like the cheapest chicken and like the shittiest quality food, definitely not eating organic, local. It
Mm.
was like whatever Kroger had on sale and
Yeah.
like packaged, boxed. So I was totally not properly nourished at that
Yeah.
time either. Um, but yeah, like fast forward, I end up getting pregnant. And of course, because of that loss, now I have this heaviness slash
Mm.
anxiety where I get pregnant and I'm like, I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want to get my head too wrapped around this because what if I lose the baby again? And so I don't even think I announced that I was pregnant until like I already knew the gender. I mean, I had done a blood test and stuff, but I was probably
Mm.
12, 13 weeks, definitely
Wow.
early
You
second
waited.
trimester.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like really panicked. And on top of that, I was receiving an ultrasound every 2 weeks from the
Wow.
time I was 6 weeks pregnant until I was 13, maybe 14 weeks pregnant, because it gave me this sense of, oh, everything's okay. And I was even
Yeah.
using like Dopplers at home way earlier than what they say, even because
Yeah.
I didn't know what I know now. I didn't know that it could damage fetal tissue. I didn't know that it's
Yeah,
sending
how would
these,
you?
yeah, like I didn't know it's sending these loud sound waves through my uterus and into my baby's ears, potentially damaging my baby's ears and tissue and organs. And now I look back and I deeply regret that part. But um, I don't even actually know how I like heard or found out about home birth. I I feel like it may have been a friend who was like, dude, you should check this out. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, whatever. And so I was probably 24 weeks pregnant before I contacted a home birth midwife.
Wow.
Um, so just, little over halfway through.
Yeah.
And a lot of home birth midwives won't take you on when you're, almost into your third trimester like that. Like they want to be
Oh,
able to
really?
build
I
that
didn't know that.
connection. I mean, it's not like this set rule or anything. Like
Mhm.
some of them do. Sorry, my dog
It's
is
okay.
on one right now.
It's
It's not
okay.
like this set rule or anything, but I just feel like it's their preference. Even if you're not a home birth midwife, like if you're walking with a
Mhm.
woman, it's definitely preferable to walk with her through the whole shebang or as much of it as possible.
Yeah.
But she took me on, and I was really grateful for that. And she felt like a great option. She would come to my house, and she would palpate my belly. I think she did get the fetoscope out once or twice, which was totally fun. But
Yeah, it's
if
cute.
I would have requested that every time, she would have done it. But
Right.
I just didn't know better, so I let her do like the Doppler and take my blood pressure, which I actually do see a benefit in keeping an eye on your blood pressure now. Whereas at one point
Mhm.
in time, I was like, who cares? It's fine. It's all fine. And now I'm like, no, like I definitely see the purpose in that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was pretty standard. I did do like the glucose drink, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
would not do. I would not do that now because it's like, doesn't even make
Why?
sense anyways. Yeah. I mean, I would prick my finger because I'm a nerd and I think it's really interesting to know like how, and like, am I balancing my meals properly right
Yeah,
now?
I think that's interesting too. But the
Yeah.
idea of like drinking a sugary drink to see that it affects you, it's like, well, yeah, of
To
course,
get
that's
one
gonna.
snippet in time. That's my thing. You're getting
Yeah.
one little snippet in time. So how do you know, even if your body doesn't react to that, how do you know that you're balancing your blood sugar all the rest of the 40 weeks of pregnancy outside
Yeah.
of that one snippet? Like I just don't, it doesn't make sense. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I see the importance in knowing how your body responds to how you're balancing your meals. But I mean,
Yeah.
really, you should never be taking in 40 or 50 grams of sugar at a time or in like an
No.
entire day. Really,
No.
like that's insane now thinking about it. I did the GBS swab or whatever as well, which again, at 36 weeks, I could have been negative or positive, and that could have changed by the time I went into labor at almost 41 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
That's a big
yeah,
thing.
wouldn't do that again. Everything was fine, normal, regular. I get to the end and I definitely had, they call it prodromal labor. And I just think it's your body
Right.
preparing for this big
Yeah.
event, understandably so. But that went on for about 2 weeks. And I was actually receiving quite a bit of like chiropractic care, which
Mm.
felt so good for my body.
Mm.
Um, totally would recommend that to anybody throughout pregnancy and
Mm.
moving as well. Like, I think that we underestimate the power of like moving your body, eating properly, going on walks. Cause like it's easy
Yeah.
to get stiffened up in general. But then whenever you have this extended belly, this extended uterus, you've already got this pressure on your back and
Mm.
things. And then you're not moving because you're tired, then you're going to get
Yeah.
even more stiffened up. So I get to the end and about 40 and 4, I um for whatever reason I was like convinced that I had a kidney infection because
Oh.
I was definitely just starting labor, but I was like, it's in my back, something's going on. So my
Oh.
midwife came over and she just kind of checked on me. And that was the start of it. It was a Friday night. And I just told my husband, like, you're not going to work tomorrow. Like, this is getting legit. And I
Yeah.
tried to go to bed, and she had given me some tinctures, which I do feel pretty strongly about. I don't think you should do anything. I don't think you should. And she wasn't trying to like induce my labor. Like, she was actually trying to give me like some nervines. I think like skull cap was one of them.
Mm.
I forget all the rest of them, honestly, but she was basically trying to help me relax so I could get a good night's rest because she obviously knew I was about to go into labor.
Yeah.
But even then, I would never, I would never suggest for women to do that because I think every single thing you do is an intervention and a
Yeah.
potential disruption to physiology.
Yeah.
Um, but I did it. She was like, anytime that you wake up, if you're feeling uncomfortable, just take some of each of these and then that should help things slow down so you can get some rest. Well, it was like the
Mm.
reverse for me. And every time I would take them, it would get very intense. And for whatever reason, it took me multiple times of taking it to realize, like, okay, maybe I should not actually
Maybe
do
not.
this. And so, probably like 1 in the morning, I get a hold of my doula and I'm like, this is so intense. Like, I don't know, this is my first time, but this is intense. So, she has me get into the shower, still super intense. So, she comes over at probably 3 in the morning.
Mm.
And I really appreciated her support. And I felt like it was really nice to have her. But looking back, like I started the party way too early. I
Okay.
really should have like just not called anybody. I probably should have just like gotten the shower and relaxed and just
Mm.
tried to sleep between contractions because it wasn't even that serious. Um,
It's tricky though
so
because
she
it's like when
was,
it's your first time, you don't really know. And that goes back to what
you
we were talking
don't,
about at the beginning of like having someone to sort of like hold that for you.
yeah. Yeah, and she did a really beautiful job. Like she gave me as much space as I wanted. She would do just whatever I wanted, For a lot of the beginning of it, she was like in the living room and I was in my bathroom.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't a big deal, but I just feel like if you start the party super early and like get into like the birth vibes, then it feels like you had a 24-hour labor if your labor was 24 hours
Yeah.
versus if you really try to like live your life, which is hard to do in the middle of the night, but if you just try to ignore it and live your life and like bake a cake or do something, go to sleep and just
Yeah.
not invite everybody in automatically,
Yeah.
then I think that it feels like it's less lengthy.
Yeah.
Um, but everything was so smooth and beautiful. And it was just me, my doula, and my husband for a majority of it
Mm.
until probably like 1 or 2 p.m. And then like it was getting very intense. So she was like, hey, how would you feel about like calling the midwife? And I wanted my mom and my sister to be there. So we called everybody and that felt really intense because like you hear people talk about this a lot, but like when someone steps into the birth space, they bring some type of energetic whatever with them, like whatever vibe, whatever stories they carry, whatever fears they might have,
Wow.
their smells, their sounds. And my mom and my sister were both like, my sister had had an actual emergency section with a very premature baby. So that was
Okay.
her story she was kind of bringing in.
Yeah.
And my mom had had all medicated or unmedicated, but still hospital births. And so they just didn't really believe in home birth to begin with.
Wow. Yeah.
But
It's a lot to bring into your
but it
space.
yeah, but it was what it was. But I could
Yeah.
feel it. Like it literally
Yeah.
when they came in and I realized they were in my space, it was like this freaking gust like came over me and like just slapped me in the face of like, oof, like this is a lot to hold and carry. And I was coping really well. And
Yeah.
then once I had like six people staring at me, it was like, this is not the same vibe. And I
Yeah.
feel like I was too into it at that point to realize that I could opt out of some of it and just say,
Hmm.
like, hey, you guys could probably go home. You're just down the road.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And so that was just before I went into transition. And it felt like the most intense thing that I've ever been through in my life. And
Mm.
I don't want to like say, oh, it was so painful. It was just
Hmm.
like a mind fuck. Like it was
Yeah.
just so much. Like I've
Yeah.
never done like I've never tripped on shrooms. I've never like sat in an ayahuasca ceremony, but I feel like this would be very similar to what those
Yeah.
vibes would be like, except maybe like a bad trip, like a bad trip.
Well, that's kind of what people say. It's like, your birth is like a medicine journey of some sorts. One of my teachers in birth, I don't do a ton of birth work anymore, but back in the day, one of my teachers was Wapio. And
Ooh.
yeah, she's great. And
Hmm.
she once told us in our group training thing, she was like, "Oh yeah, like when I was a younger midwife teaching other midwives, if women hadn't given birth themselves, I would take them to the jungle to sit with ayahuasca because that's the only other way they can learn."
First of all, that's extremely intense, but probably very accurate.
Right? I mean, I think it has to be.
It is. And I mean, of course, like pain has purpose and intensity. I like to use the word intensity a little bit
Mm,
more because
yeah.
it's with natural birth, it's so much different than I've never been induced, but from what women say with inductions, it's like a Pitocin contraction. It comes out of nowhere,
Mhm.
sideswipes you, and it's at a full 100% for that full duration of the contraction. Whereas with a physiologic birth, you can feel it coming on. I can't really, the best way I know how to explain it, and I feel like everybody explains it this way, but literally is a wave because like, oh, like it's starting up and it slowly peaks. And the peak for me was maybe 10 seconds long. And that's the most intense part of the 60 seconds or whatever. And then immediately you can feel it coming down. And so for me, the rest of it, other than that 10 seconds, wasn't that bad. But when you throw on the layer of having six people watching you, and you
Oof,
throw
yeah.
on the layer of not being able to urinate, and your baby being asynclitic, and this is your first baby. And so, the journey through the pelvis and getting your pelvis to open up for that very first time is just so different
Mm,
than a second time or a third time
mm,
or and so on. And that was the extreme part for me. And I felt like it was really hard for me to surrender as well.
mm,
There was a part where I felt very like I wanted to be intimate with my husband.
mm.
And I didn't exactly know how to say that. And I would assume that that was my body craving more oxytocin and
Yeah.
trying to get it the best way that it knew how.
Yeah.
Um, but like I had too much good girl in me. Everybody would have
Mm,
absolutely left the room. Everybody would have left
yeah.
my house had I wanted them to. But like when you're going through transition, you literally almost can't speak. And this isn't for everybody. Some women do it differently, but for me, I like had zero energy to muster up any words. If I wanted the light off, I would basically just like look up at it and hope that somebody caught my vibe because it was
Oh,
too much. Like it was too much
yeah.
to just say, get the light off, or get
Yeah.
out of here. But that extreme part went on from probably 2 p.m. until I ended up birthing him at it was like 8:45 or
Wow.
8:50 at night. So it was like a good
It's a
long
big chunk.
transition. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were really trying to help me. They put me in some positions that were very intense and they really, really made a difference.
Mm,
Because it was shortly after putting me in, there's this position called Welchers. I don't know if you're familiar with it
yeah.
from spinning babies. Holy shit. It is like the most intense thing I've ever done, ever. But I basically laid, for anybody who doesn't know, I laid at the edge of my bed and I put a couple pillows up under my butt and I had my legs dangling and I
Hmm.
just had to like lay there on my back for 3 contractions. And that was the position that made the biggest difference because I could feel him rotating and rattling and doing
Wow.
something with his head. I could feel it all going. I just felt like he was like scraping up against my pelvis.
Yeah.
Um, but that like right there is what really makes me feel like he was asynclitic
Yeah.
and he needed a chance to just have a little bit of space to fix his head.
Well, and I just want to say here too, I like your reflection back on this now of being like, yeah,
Mhm.
I needed those positions. Because I think it's easy for us to think like you should just be in whatever position you want. And it's like, well, when we think about life, if we always followed what was most comfortable, we wouldn't,
Hmm.
we wouldn't necessarily always grow. We wouldn't necessarily always like do what was actually right. And I think
Yeah.
dismissing the importance of like biomechanics and birth is a little naive. So it's
Yes.
yeah, it's cool to hear your perspective on it now.
Yeah. And it took me a lot to get here because when I first started my podcast and I first told my birth story, I literally said spinning babies was made up by a group of people who pathologized the positioning of your baby. And now I'm like, of course it makes sense to be aware of positioning of the baby in the pelvis and
Yeah.
how, and like what would be like, I don't know what the word is, but like most optimal. Like, of
Hmm.
course that makes sense. And
Yeah.
as you said, I mean, I know of stories of women who free birthed and had a 4, 5, 6 day labor, probably because their baby was malpositioned.
Mm,
And we don't know, right? I'm making
we
this
don't know.
all, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, but I assume that had she had a wise woman there to maybe guide her and
Mm,
say, hey, try this out, that could have been the difference between a 24, 48 hour labor or a 4, 5, 6 day labor.
mm.
So, yeah, I definitely think it's important. And at the same time, yeah, like you should have the space to do what you will, but it's when you've been struggling for a little while that it's really wise to have somebody in the space to kind of um be that like shaman, and like
Yeah.
be that guide and take your hand and say, okay, I know you're really deep in this right now. Let me be the light and let me guide you through right now.
Mm.
And that felt so important to me actually successfully like having this baby at home because by the time all was said and done, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Brickleberry or not.
No, I haven't.
If you haven't, you should totally go look it up after this. But there's
Okay,
this
well.
big chick on there. I don't know what her name is. Connie. Connie is her name. After I gave birth, I remember looking in the mirror and I was like, holy shit, I look like Connie off of Brickleberry right now. Because my eyes were my eye was so swollen and uncomfortable. Like my eyes were bugged out from just I was
Wow.
pushing on and off for like 4 hours. So yes, at some point I needed some guidance.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm so grateful for it now. But
Mm.
yeah, I finally locked in the last probably 20 minutes. I started, after I'd gotten the catheter, after I'd done a few positions for a couple of contractions, I get into my birth pool and I lock in. And this is where I felt very primal. My sister took some videos of me, which I'm really grateful for. But there was a moment where I stood up and I grabbed both my ass cheeks and I just start like wildly lunging side to side to side. And I am like doing anything I can. I'm like, I will literally do anything right now. And
Wow.
and the position that actually got him out was I ended up throwing one of my legs up by my like shoulder in the birth pool, almost like a super deep, awkward lunge. And then I put that one down. I put the other one back up, and that's actually what got him out. It wasn't just your standard on your back, hands and knees, anything. Like I had to try so many different things.
Wow.
Um, but what felt really encouraging was when his head started crowning finally, I reached down like on my own and I felt, and I was like, oh, okay, it's paying off. And then I would have a contraction, I would push, I would feel, okay, more of his head is out, more is out. And that felt really great too. And I also, the midwives did guide me at the end too, because I was asking for it. I was like, please, put your hand. I just said at the time, I was like, put your hand down there, like put a towel down there. Put like, do anything, help me. And they were like, his head was so big that once like the most of it was out, I don't know what they were doing. They may have been kind of,
Hmm.
finagling a little bit, but
Hmm.
really, I was so grateful for it because it was just really hard, really, really hard. His head came out, and I was like, okay, I'm supposed to wait. But it literally feels like you have to take the biggest poop of your life. And, when
Wow.
you feel that, you cannot just wait. Like
Wait.
it's so intense to sit there and wait. So his head came out, and I maybe waited a few seconds, And then I just let out, and his body just glid right out at
Woo!
that point. And I was like, oh my God, thank God.
Oh,
And it was so beautiful. But again, looking back, I had too many people observing. I had hired my doula to also be a photographer, and I
oh
didn't
wow.
realize how much flash photography, it doesn't affect everyone, but for me,
Mm,
I'm very sensitive, and it definitely, I think, affected me,
yeah.
because a little bit of time went by, and I let out a very good sized gush of blood that continued.
Mm,
Um, and I at first thought it was just my placenta, but the midwife felt around. She was super chill. She felt around and she was like, no. And then she was like, how are you feeling? I felt fine at the time. But it kept coming. And it was really hard for her to help me while I was in the pool.
mm,
And so she asked me to get out of the pool. And somebody helped me stand up. But once I stood up, everything was spinning and I got a little pale and I didn't feel right. And so I got out of the pool and I didn't know really anything about delivering your placenta and how important that is when you're dealing with
mm.
like immediate blood loss like that.
Yeah, totally.
So they gave me some herbs. I don't exactly know what, but I would assume it was like angelica,
Probably,
something
yeah.
like that. They gave me some herbs and they did some cord traction. And for a
Okay.
while, I had this weird feeling of like, nobody should ever pull on anybody's cord ever. Like, I
Mm,
had this story of that. And I do believe that for the most part, we probably shouldn't
yeah,
be. But in a case like that, when somebody is bleeding and they don't really know what to do, I mean, if they're not going to do it, the only thing is to get that placenta out.
yeah,
And so they were doing some cord traction, and the placenta came out, and then the bleeding stopped, and it was no big
yeah,
deal.
yeah. Well, this
Um,
these are where like these nuances come in, where it's just like you said at the very beginning, like birth is literally bringing a soul from one realm to another. Like, how could we pretend to know everything there is about it, and how could it ever be black and white?
yeah, yeah, and there are things that are like I said, for the most part, like when you think of in a hospital setting, a lot of the times, not all the time, but a lot of the times, the birth of the placenta is highly rushed because
Hmm.
they have so many other people to get to.
Yeah,
So usually it's like a shot of Pitocin and some immediate, very rough cord traction.
yeah,
And there can be some cons to that as well. But I mean, when the alternative is to lay there and keep bleeding when you're already not feeling good,
yeah,
and and also, yeah, you could tell somebody get up into a squat and try to pull on the cord yourself, but how practical is that when they're pale, dizzy, and trying to hold their newborn baby and have no energy because they've been pushing for 4 hours? So
yeah,
that was kind of the boat that I was in. And I was like, looking back now, I'm so grateful. Again, I mean, I know I've said that so much, but it's really important to me now to, I don't think women should be fearful of asking someone to walk with them in their space. And what I've come to realize too is it's not even licensed versus unlicensed, honestly, because I know of licensed midwives who are way more sovereign than some
mm,
traditional midwives that I know of.
yeah,
And
that's
and
true.
vice versa. I mean, I know
Yeah,
of traditional midwives who will set at your cervix, massaging and swiping over and over and checking and checking. And then I know of some licensed midwives who do not want to check your cervix. And
yeah,
like that's the last resort. And, here's another piece of nuance. For the most part, it is pointless to check a cervix. And then sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's actually helpful to know what station a baby is in and know
mm,
how dilated a mom is. In the case of this mom has a full bladder, we can't empty it. She's been going for 24 hours. If she's dilated to a 2 and the baby's super high up, how much more oomph is she going to have in her, really?
yeah,
And I mean,
yeah.
it sounds crappy to say it that way, but it that is the time where I think that the nuance comes in, and it can be a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole picture
Yeah. Well, what
at
you're
all.
really what yeah, I really appreciate that. I've never thought about it this way, but what it's really reminding me of is like in my practice, I see women and I support women with fertility and hormonal concerns and painful periods, PMS, all that stuff. And I never like to go straight to like, let's get your lab testing and like review your lab results. But that can be like one piece of the puzzle to be like, okay, what can we actually see what's going on here? And
Yeah.
I think it's the same in birth. It's like, can we put the pieces of how are you feeling, with the baseline that we trust your body with, okay, and like what's the data we can see here? Because we do have the capacity to have some data in different ways with our health, and that can actually be supportive if we know how to use it in the right way.
Yeah, if we're not abusing it.
Yes.
That's the big piece right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think there's been this big distrust toward licensed midwives in particular, and then this automatic trust almost in traditional midwives, and that's not the case. I don't think
Yeah.
that that's appropriate,
Yeah.
because with traditional midwives, you don't know what you're getting. You have no
Yeah.
idea. Is this person just calling themselves a traditional midwife? And also, you shouldn't really be calling yourself a traditional midwife unless you learn directly from your Cherokee roots or from your
Mm,
Latina roots, or, like that to me is a traditional midwife. That means this tradition has been passed on from your granny, your auntie,
yeah.
in the lineage, in the line, and you're practicing as if as your ancestors would have practiced.
Wow.
So to me, it's just licensed versus unlicensed. And then you have to go as far as saying, like, okay, are you a doula? And you don't, some doulas know a lot. Some
Yeah.
doulas don't know anything
Yeah.
aside from squeezing your hips. And if you're in any of the predicaments that I was in, you probably want somebody that knows a little bit more than squeezing hips, because
Yeah.
that could end up being an unnecessary hospital transfer. Um, and if you're somebody who doesn't like, who has like a fear of the hospital, or that's, your very, very, very last resort, then I think it would be nice to have somebody, and I'm going to say it, and people are going to roll their eyes, but even with a stick of Pitocin in your house. Do I love Pitocin? No. Would I prefer Pitocin? No. Would I ever use it to induce my labor? No. But if I had tried all of the natural routes at my home, nothing was working, and I was continuing to rapidly decline, I would appreciate to be able to have that option versus a 16-minute drive to the hospital, passing out,
Mm,
or, whatever, because that can be really traumatic for your partner as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like this is a necessity you have to have on hand, because there are so many other things, right? There's homeopathy, there's herbs, there are uh, arteries that you could press on, there's
Yeah.
bimanual compression. There are so many things that you could do aside from stick somebody to get them to the hospital if that's really how bad it was. And most
Yeah.
times it's not, of course.
Yeah.
But for the women who are like actually attending births. I'm not talking about somebody who's attended 15 births and are saying that they're an expert, but like somebody who is in an active um, birth practice. At some point, at some time, you're going to see these things that have been labeled quote unquote rare,
Yeah.
including breech and issues with breech, including shoulders. We don't live in the same days that our ancestors who were
Mm,
carrying 5 gallons of water on their head all day
yeah.
long. Half of us are laid up on our couch not doing anything. And so, of course, that can affect positioning. Of course, that can affect the size of your baby. And I don't say any of this to scare women, but like part of taking
Mhm.
responsibility, in my opinion, is being properly informed. How can you make the choice to free birth or to go to the hospital or to do any of that if you haven't actually been properly informed?
Yeah. Well,
It's not
yeah,
fair.
I mean, it's not, and it comes back to what you were speaking to with the maturity that you feel like you've cultivated within yourself. And I think like what I really hear from you is like we have to strip away all the noise and the ego and all of the like outside forces to actually tune into like what are the nuances in this situation and like what do I truly believe? and to take the charge away from some certain aspects of birth that perhaps we've held a really strong charge around. And I think that's just such a really important message for any woman, like whatever side of the spectrum she's on. Like if she's coming in from
Yep.
the free birth world with zero room for openness, like this is really great for that woman. If she's coming from a, home birth is dangerous perspective, like this is great for that woman to be able to see like how can we see the nuance and make decisions that are true for us without
Hmm.
the ego and the ideology. Because, I say this often with, I was telling you before we hit record that I used to be vegan, and vegan's an ideology that isn't actually good for the body. And we can have so many things like that with birth too, where it's like we prioritize the ideology over what's true for our physiology. And what I really
Yeah.
hear you speaking to, the wisdom that you've gleaned from your experiences, is like, how can we actually tune into reality in a way that honors ourselves and our bodies and the truth of the moment? It's
Hmm.
so important.
Yeah. And I don't want to take away from women who have deeply felt called to free birth, because I do think that
Yeah.
that exists. And I do think that that is an incredible option. But again, just be informed and know that everything isn't a variation of normal. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
most of the time, here's the beautiful thing: God designed birth to be so beautiful and mostly perfect.
Yeah.
Mostly perfect. So even if you literally knew nothing and you lived in a cave somewhere and you had nothing, you would probably just birth your baby successfully and be just fine.
Hmm.
That's like the most likely thing.
Yeah.
And then sometimes stuff happens. And I
Hmm.
think that it's, if you're the type of person who likes to be prepared, then it's just a good idea to know some things and to have some wisdom.
Mm. Wow. I feel like there's so much more that we could dive into, and I want to hear so much more about your experiences too. I guess what the last question I want to ask before I give you an opportunity to share the work that you're doing now is, who did you become after this birth? Like, what did that catalyze you into?
Mm. Well, I've been multiple versions of myself in a different way.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for a while I was in pure bliss.
Mm.
I was really in pure bliss for probably 4 months. And I was like, everybody needs to do this. This is the only
Mm.
way. I had the most amazing experience. And then I started to like question, I'm a really deep critical thinker. And I think most of us
Mhm.
who live in this like sovereign paradigm are like that as well.
Yeah.
And so I would be going on walks with my baby and I would just be questioning, like, why did I bleed? Why
Mm.
did I struggle to urinate? Why, why was my experience the way that it was? Why was it so hard? Um, and so that just led me to finding more information. And that's when I found um, someone who, I mean, we all probably know, but I'm definitely not going to name drop, but just gave a lot of really good information about sovereign birth, but in a not so nuanced way. And that really pushed me into this blame, hate,
Mm.
mean girl,
Mm.
somebody I didn't want to be
Yeah.
for a while. And I really hurt um, my birth community, my
Mm.
sisters, my local midwives, my doulas, my birth team. I really hurt them. And that is not me. That is not me at all. I am not the type of person who can say what I think, speak it out loud, and then not care at all how that lands.
Mm.
For me, it really matters how I make people feel. And one big thing that came up for me in the realization of who I had become was, I believe that at the end of this journey, there's some sort of life review, judgment, something. I believe that we get the opportunity to reflect on our experience here on earth. And I thought to myself, how is this gonna how is this gonna play out for me? I hurt
Mm.
these people so deeply because of the things that I said. upon my quote unquote being woke over my like experience and thinking that I had just figured it all out. They had just ruined my whole birth. They had just sabotaged everything and just putting it out so strongly in this really mean way. And I didn't like who I had become either. And what also made me realize that was I was active in my birth local birth community because I was a doula and all of these other things. And so I was in this page, this group on Facebook for all of us. We meet up, like we see each other regularly. And I went to look when the next meetup was, and I had been removed from the group. And I was like, excuse me, like I beg your finest pardon. Why was I removed from this group? And I took that so personal. And so I reached out to one of the local midwives, and she was just like, you really hurt everybody. And like part of being in this birth work together is like trust and being able to like rely on one another and not throw each other under the bus. And nobody's perfect. And we all served you with our whole entire heart. Nobody ever meant anything. And I had spoken with her about my newfound reflections, but not in the same way and
Yeah.
not in person. She had tried to take me out to like lunch, and I just was like, let's just do a phone call, probably because I was like, I shouldn't have been doing it. I shouldn't have been
Yeah.
having that conversation in that way. But instead of listening to myself, I went ahead and did it anyways, thinking it would make me feel better. And and it didn't. And I think it's important to debrief your birth with your team, but please try to hold some nuance and some grace and some sympathy and understanding. And it doesn't mean you need to gaslight yourself if somebody
No.
legitimately abused you, because that does occur.
Yeah.
Like we know that that occurs. Um, but we're all human beings. And I think that most people who step into women's work, and especially like in birth, as it's so intimate, I think they're doing it with the best intentions and with this big open heart and with so much love for whoever it is that they're serving. It's impossible to not come out of that relationship like having so much love for each and every woman that you
Yeah.
serve. And that is when I realized that I did that, I it was another deep grief portal for weeks, a month, until I could just meet up in person with these women and slowly start patching and repairing. So I started by taking my birth story down, and I started by opening up my mind to nuance and and kind of making a bit of a comeback. And then also realizing when you have a podcast and you have a platform, it's so important to not push ideology and be super dogmatic, because how many people, how many women, men, whoever listen to this, are going to hear that and then take that on into their life and apply
Yeah.
that? And then how many people that they have told about it are going to apply it? And this keeps going on and on. It's this big ripple effect. So you can spread love, you can spread hate. It's our choice as the podcast host. And I've realized that I want to spread love. And if anyone listening to this had, only heard my beginning episodes of my podcast and it left you with some like bad taste in your mouth, or, if it made you reflect on your experience in a negative way, I am deeply sorry. And I really hope that everything that I've said here today can just help repair the damages that I feel like I had caused.
Wow, Brittany. I feel myself like tearing up while you've been talking because it's just like to be able to humble yourself and like admit that you were acting in integrity with who you are
Yeah.
is a big freaking deal.
It's hard. It's so hard. You have
It's
to
really
let
hard.
go of so much ego.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now that the fruit that has come from me doing this has been immense, has
Yeah.
been incredible. My relationship with the women in my community is so beautiful again.
Yeah.
I'm being invited back into births and learning opportunities. And these women have so much wisdom.
Yeah.
like so much wisdom. And these are like, I wouldn't call them elders, but they're like on their way to being like the elders of the community. And those are women we should have some deep, deep respect for.
Yeah.
They have really been on a long journey to get to where they are.
Yeah.
And to make statements like I had in the past of like, they just don't know what we know. Like, bro,
Mhm.
you're 28. You're not a wise elder. Okay. You don't know everything. I'm sorry. It's just true. And that is where I find myself now. I'm in
Mm.
just a beautiful, um, beautiful relationship with all of my local women and just continuing to try to be humble, repair, and learn, learn, learn. I love it
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I can really relate in my own ways of feeling like, yeah, that I've had to apologize to certain women in my life for the radical stances I once held that I resonated so much when you were like, do I want to spread love or do I want to spread hate? And I think, yeah, when you're a podcast host, when you have a platform, like you have that responsibility. Like, I really think that when we have big platforms, even if they're not big, even if we're just like a platform that we're speaking on, we carry a level of responsibility. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's a great message for all of us that again, like I can relate to too, where it's like when I'm able to soften like that and recognize that I don't know everything, I connect with the people in my life on a deeper level and there's more love. There's just more love. And
Yeah.
so I mean, this episode has been talking with you has been absolutely beautiful. I just think that conversations like these are the way that we heal a society that loves to be like chronically divided and divisive
Mm-hmm.
and full of hate. And so to bring back this piece of love and understanding and humbling ourselves is monumental. And so I really appreciate the work you've done on yourself and the way that you're able to share it now, to
Thank
support so many
you.
people.
Thank you. It's been quite the journey to get here. And I'm only 28. Like I said
Yeah.
before, like I have so much, and that's what we have to realize with whatever work it is that you're doing in this world, not specifically birth work, anything, is just take your time. You
Yeah.
have the rest of your life to
Yeah.
develop the skills that you are starting to work on now. Give yourself grace, allow yourself to take breaks, allow yourself to mess up and then to rebound from it. Just because you mess up doesn't mean that you can't make things right.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super important. And be humble, all of us, including myself.
Yeah, we're doing it. We're learning. Oh, Brittany, thank you so much. I would love if you wanted to share. We've kind of touched on that you have a podcast, but if you want to share about your podcast and where women can find you and what else you have going on, I would love that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm on a break from my podcast right now. I am not 100% certain what the future holds because of all these big shifts that I made. It's not in exactly full alignment with where I was a year ago when I started it,
Hmm.
but you can find some really good story medicine. Um, Forgive the lack of nuance in the first episodes, but still, it is called Hear Me Roar, all caps with a period at the end. I do plan on, no matter what I decide to do, I plan on coming back in January and at least recording one episode to let people know kind of what's going on, where they can find me, or maybe I'll keep going with it. I'm not sure yet. Um, and then Instagram is always a really good place at walking underscore with underscore women. And then, of course, my website is walkingwithbrittany.com.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much, Brittany. I'm so grateful for this conversation. It always brings my heart so much peace and so much joy to have these like raw and real conversations with women. So thank you for being available for that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the wisdom of the womb today. It's truly such an honor to bring these stories forward to you, and it would mean so much to me if you'd rate and review this podcast so that it could reach more women. If you're looking for deeper support, you can find the link to join our online community, the Cyclical Living Circle, in the show notes below. There, you'll also find the links to book one-on-one virtual sessions, shop the herbal shop, and any group programs that I'm currently offering. Plus, you can follow me on Instagram, and I love to connect with you all there. All right, see you next week.